They make it like Wild Thing, Charlie Sheen, a relief pitcher.
He's a relief pitcher.
Makes them great.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Hello there.
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Scher.
Howdy.
And today, we are actually in a real studio.
It's so cozy in here.
It is cozy.
I can see your faces.
Yes.
You're not wearing pants.
No.
Nope. I mean, that's the way I would do it normally, so why wouldn't I do it in front of you?
Yeah, we're on a roll. Keep it the same.
Yeah. So as long as you guys don't look down, you'll be good.
I'm up here.
Yeah, guys, my eyes right here, man. But yeah, it's been long in coming, but we finally got there, and it's pretty awesome, I think. And I think we'll have last time we were all together, we tried to do it with all in the closet, and
a little different.
And it was a weird experience, but I think this is a lot better. So
We don't talk about that anymore.
we don't talk about that anymore. But today we're going to continue our series of best of the years we've been alive, and today we're going to be talking about 1988.
It's showtime. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Just let yourself, baby.
I faked every orgasm.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
1988 is not a great year for great movies, but it is a great year for like comedies and action movies and stuff like that. I mean, right off the bat, Die Hard came out in 1988, a movie I still think is probably the best action movie to come out in the last 30 years, right?
It's got to be up there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything that's come after it has been shaped by it. So its greatness cannot be denied. But we were talking earlier, it's not a great year for like great movies, but it's a great year for good movies.
Yeah.
Like decent, enjoyable. It's pretty deep
Yeah.
in the B movie A- range, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some really good comedies. Coming to America
Yeah.
is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Talk about rewatchable. That's got so many quotes from it, from the Soul Glow commercial, and from Arsenio Hall's banter with Eddie Murphy, and then Eddie Murphy's banter with himself.
Yes,
especially in the barbershop scenes. That are like some of the funniest things that I've ever seen.
Oh, they're fantastic, and I love that scene too, where he's gonna go on a date with Lisa. And he comes out onto that stoop, and there's two kids outside, and he's like, "I am going to have a date with Lisa tonight." and the kids are just looking at him like, it's one of my favorite parts in any movie. Also, if you want to talk huge movie, and this is no pun intended or anything, but big. Came out in 1988. I believe it was. No, it wasn't. I don't think it was the number one box office hit. I think Rain Man was. Which we'll have to talk about Rain Man at some point too. But Love Big. What do you think about that?
Oh, it's great. It's great. Well, and it was. I mean, certainly Tom Hanks had plenty of hits leading up to this, but this is sort of the defining Tom Hanks.
This is what made him a huge star.
Yeah, it took him to A-list, and he's never left it since. And I love that movie. It's so family friendly. Probably not the first kid in an adult's body or adult in a kid's body swap kind of thing. We've certainly seen plenty since then, about 17 of them. But it's just great. It holds up really well, I think. I just saw it like a couple months ago.
It's like it was made for 1988 Tom Hanks, because it's got the man-child thing, and he could act kind of both ways, which is really his persona, and right, especially in that time frame. So it was like tailor-made for him, basically.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I really enjoy Big, and it's a perfect fantasy, especially when you're that age and you want to be older and you want to the things that you want, and he puts himself basically in the position of power to get to that point. Just by accident, of course, but still, it's just a fun movie, and I love just how he goes into these board. He's he's making toys. It's like the best job a 12-year-old could have, and he's like coming up with all these ideas, and like, yeah, that's right. They basically, in Big, the corporation has their test audience in there. They just don't know, but love Big.
It's got that iconic floor piano scene
with
Robert Loggia.
Robert Loggia. Yep.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
This was a really good year for baseball movies.
Oh yeah.
Specifically, Bull Durham and 8 Men Out.
Oh yeah.
Both came out in '88. And I was putting together my rankings and my list, and I have a hard time figuring out which one of those two I like more. And they're completely different films.
Very different.
Bull Durham's a comedy, and 8 Men Out is a pretty much straight up drama. But if you've never seen 8 Men Out, it's about the Black Sox scandal, where the White Sox players were basically caught throwing the World Series. And that is a movie with a cast. If you've never seen it, you will not believe how many people are in this movie.
It's unreal.
Yeah, it's a crazy cast that you probably couldn't put together today, just because some of them were on the way up. And you look back now and you're like, oh, that guy. It's almost like Band of Brothers, where you watching Band of Brothers, you're like, oh, Tom Hardy was in that?
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you guys think about Bull Durham and 8 Men Out?
Well, both of those movies are excellent. You can't go wrong with either one of them. If we told you to go out right now and go get those two movies or watch it on Netflix or wherever you can find them, whichever one that you decide to watch first is going to be a great experience.
Yeah.
Bull Durham is one of those. It's weird. The movie isn't so much about baseball,
right?
But I feel like it gets baseball right better than most movies. And I feel like Kevin Costner actually looks like he can play baseball, which is something that's rare. We're going to get into a lot of sports movie stuff later, but that movie's just all in all fantastic, and it's funny. Ron Shelton actually based Bull Durham on not that the story was based on anything that he had done, but like a lot of the baseball stuff. Ron Shelton was actually a minor league baseball player back in the day, and he took those experiences and wrote that movie.
Which might explain why the movie gets baseball right more than most.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Chris and I were talking the other day about Kevin Costner's career and why he's not mentioned like as one of the greatest of all time, because he's been in such great movies. He's been like in amazing movies. And he had the stretch run of, I guess, what was it, 86 until 92 or 93?
It was a good stretch there, about 5 years, where he was the number one male star in the world.
He's in everything, but he doesn't have he's in iconic movies, but he doesn't have iconic roles.
Yeah.
Right? He's not known for his performance ability and his ability to kind of like disappear inside of a role.
Well, his most iconic roles are everyman roles.
Yeah,
like
they're
Field
all,
of Dreams and Dances with Wolves, and they're access points for us to feel like we're that character. And that, I've heard that before. The knock is that Costner's always playing Costner.
Yeah.
And I think there are plenty of actors, Gary Oldman is the first one that comes to mind, that are true chameleons that can just completely change. But I think most of our stars are just playing themselves in every movie. I think that's Harrison Ford. I think that's Tom Hanks. I think, you'll see some flashes here and there of some like really different characters or characterizations or what have you. But I've always loved Costner because of that everyman quality. He seems so approachable.
That's what makes these types of movies like Bull Durham or Tin Cup or like even The Untouchables, it probably makes them better just because he's so relatable.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he's done plenty, in the last 20 years to show he's got range. Like Mr. Brooks is fantastic.
That's a great movie.
Yep. The problem with, calling him an all-timer for some people is just that he had a short period of time where he was on top. Once he started declining in that mid-90s area where Waterworld and all that, the Postman and all that started coming out. A lot of the sheen came off of him, and he never really recovered from that. He is in stuff that's like Mr. Brooks that's excellent. Every once in a while he'll pop in something that's great like that. But he's not like what Hanks had that whole decade in the 90s where he was the top star.
Yeah.
Well,
and Harrison Ford had a little bit longer run too.
Yeah. But I think Barrett's right. He probably should get more, I guess, acclaim or more consideration as an all-timer.
Hey, speaking of Harrison Ford, can I ask you guys a question?
Go for it.
Because you've probably seen this much more recently than I have. Is Frantic just taken? like several years earlier?
Well,
There's
Because
not
isn't
anywhere
he in
near as
France
much.
and he's trying to find his disappeared wife?
Well, yeah, sure, but there's not as much ass beating or awesome threats made over the phone, and it's much more of a thriller than any kind of an action.
Well,
film.
Wasn't that Roman Polanski that did it?
Maybe.
Yes.
I haven't seen it in 15 years, honestly.
Yeah, it was Polanski. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't like the wording of it. I don't like it. Is it Taken? Taken's more frantic than.
Yeah.
I know what you mean. But yeah, it's kind of it's got that same kind of thing. It's really good, by the way. Really tense throughout, and it sort of keeps you guessing too, like as to whether is he going to succeed or not. Because it's you don't know by the end of it.
And it's a lyric in a Bare Naked Lady song too.
Is it?
Like Harrison Ford, I'm getting frantic. Like Sting, I'm tantric.
There you go.
Like Snickers, guaranteed to satisfy.
I'm glad somebody knew that little bit of trivia.
All right. So other stuff that stands out. There's a lot of comedies to me that stand out. The Naked Gun is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I remember watching this in the theater and just doubled over laughing all the way through. This is the Zucker brothers with Jim Abrams. Again, this was based on Police Squad, which had 6 episodes on TV, and I never got to see it until like they some reason played it for 6 episodes, and they played all the 6 episodes in like the 90s for some
That's all
reason.
they had was 6 episodes?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And there's I can't remember the story behind why it was a series that they liked the series. I think CBS liked the series, but they had to cancel it because we wanted a series that was more like you had to pay attention to each episode or whatever. I don't remember what the whole thing was there. But The Naked Gun, a hilarious movie. I think it goes right along with Airplane and all that.
Oh, yeah.
As one of their best.
This is where OJ, besides the isotoners and the commercials and all that stuff, and of course the football stuff, this is where he really like broke into the public consciousness outside of sports, really.
Yeah.
Man, there was a time there where I knew O.J. Simpson as the guy from the Naked Gun movies and the Hertz commercials.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I was too young to have seen him play football.
Mm-hmm.
I only knew him as a former football player turned celebrity,
Mm-hmm.
which probably makes the whole O.J. Simpson murder trial an even weirder experience. Or maybe not weirder. It's probably weirder for people who saw him play football and knew him as a football star first.
Yeah. And there's the Naked Gun 2.5, I remember the poster had the characters on it and everything. And although OJ was never accused of shooting someone, there's a thing on the poster that they had no idea. For Nordberg, the character he plays, where it says that is a gun in his pocket.
Awkward.
Yeah, very much so. What else stands out to you guys?
Well, this is the year Beetlejuice came out.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they're apparently going to go back to this well here very soon and do some
Are
kind
they?
of... Yeah, like they're going to make a sequel or a remake or reboot or something.
Oh, really?
Which is probably a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I remember I had never seen anything like Beetlejuice when I first saw it. I mean, it was hard for me to even really conceive of what I was seeing because it was such a unique idea and so unique visually, and all the performances are so over the top. It's basically Tim Burton at his Burtoniest, right?
Yeah.
Before he got into these CGI color visual
Yeah,
things.
this is Tim Burton when he's really good. Like, he has a streak here that he starts where there's really good stuff that's coming out, like Edward Scissorhands and all that. Beetlejuice is really good. And then, I think he just sort of falls in love with this visual storytelling later on when after he's made Batman and all that. That's basically what defines his movies. It's not really the idea, or the story or anything. It's just like, let's see how we can make this look really cool. But Beetlejuice actually has a pretty good story involved with it. And Winona Ryder was this was a big year for Winona Ryder, becoming one of the big stars of the day with this. She's only like 17 in this movie.
Yeah, she becomes a big star off of 2 really kind of darkish,
messed up movies. Yeah, because Heathers, which is another one that came out this year, Heathers has got a different look to it today when you watch it.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah,
because
big time.
because and spoilers about Heathers, but you should see this movie. But towards the end, Christian Slater wants to blow up the school.
Yeah, that's not a movie that could be made now.
You could never make it. Hardly could make it back then.
Yeah.
But Daniel Waters, I can't remember his last name's Waters, is the brother of Mark Waters, who did Mean Girls later on.
Oh, okay.
They have sort of that DNA with high school movies.
Interesting.
But,
they had a rough time in high school.
yeah, apparently so. Heathers has a different feel today.
I love
when you watch it.
the funeral scene. I quote this line inappropriately all the time, but the dead jock guy, everybody, I forget why, but for some reason everybody has decided he was gay.
Yeah.
And he wasn't.
That's how they staged their deaths.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the dad is giving the funeral speech and coming to grips with his son's homosexuality. And he's like, I love my dead gay son.
yeah. It's so fantastic. Oh, yeah. It's just a classic line. What else stands out to you guys?
Well, I got to talk about Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Yes. Oh, my God.
Another movie I have read that they are going to remake,
Mm.
which they should leave alone. I believe this one was even a remake.
Yeah, it's like a slight remake of some other movie that I can't remember.
So Michael Caine, Steve Martin at his best.
Mm-hmm.
This is really a wheelhouse year for some of these actors.
Yeah.
And I have seen Dirty Rotten Scoundrels maybe 32 times.
I think I've seen the exact amount of time.
And it's still, even today it plays fine because it's set overseas in another country and you're not worried about like technology and whatnot. It holds up really well. It's a great kind of little con movie in addition to just being a great comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steve Martin at his very best in this. And Michael Caine, like, I don't know if audiences were really used to him being this type. He's I guess he's playing straight man in this, but
Yeah.
he's really funny in it too.
Yeah,
he's
he
got
is.
so many great moments in this. Especially like at the very beginning when it sets up the entire movie. Is like it's all you see is just like hands and you hear voices and stuff like that, and it's just like she's like there's this woman off screen that says, I want to give you all this money, I want to help your country, and he's like oh, we are too proud to get to take money from somebody or whatever, and it's like, but okay, what about for the women? Our women fight just as much as the men and all this other stuff. And then he's like, what about the children? And he's like, and then you see a hand go over to her hand. For the children.
I love when he goes to see Steve Martin, right before that, actually, when Steve Martin's in jail and he's trying to think of this dude's name.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing scripted there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure the script just said, be Steve Martin for 30 seconds. But he struggles to Lars Chesterfedden, Chestin. And if you want to see pure comedy, just look up that scene on YouTube. It's freaking hysterical.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
And Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is like just a really short, it's a short movie. You can watch it anytime. It's a huge recommend out of 1988.
Yeah, absolutely.
What else comes up?
That's a good point. This is wheelhouse years this is really a golden age of comedy because you've got Michael Keaton doing Michael Keaton stuff in Beetlejuice.
Mm-hmm.
You got Steve Martin doing his best in Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and Big with Tom Hanks. And then you got like Chevy Chase doing his thing in Funny Farm, which is an overlooked movie. But I watched this movie a lot, and I thought it was hilarious.
Oh yeah, critically reviled when it came out, but I love Funny Farm.
Yeah, man.
It's a perfect little movie.
Yeah, it's that cohort of comedians around that era. You had Aykroyd and John Candy do The Great Outdoors.
Another critically reviled
exactly,
movie.
Man. I mean, if those movies came out now, they would be like more highly regarded because there's moments of pure brilliance in all those things.
Well, and you've also got Scrooged with Bill Murray. In peak Bill Murray form.
Yeah,
and it's not, I don't think, one of his most talked about roles. But every Christmas season, I try and catch it because he's hilarious in it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure the supporting cast is as good as some of his other films or like he does What About Bob and Groundhog Day a little bit after this. Really hits his stride, but he's hilarious in this movie.
Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite holiday movies, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, between the guy from the New York Dolls, the cab driver in that, the cab driver's really good. And and Bobcat Goldthwait and Karen Allen and all those guys.
Yeah.
It holds up really well because he's just so over the fucking top in that performance.
Yeah, he is. Speaking of not holding up very well, a movie that everyone I knew at age 13 in 1988 saw, Young Guns.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it, by the way.
You've never seen Young Guns?
Never seen Young Guns.
Wow.
Well, just for like historical museum purposes, you should watch it. Just because for a time, that was the shit, man. Everyone I knew loved that movie.
Oh, yeah.
Quoted it.
You were absolutely right about that, though. I heard that's all I ever heard about. Was
and you watch it today, and you're like, what the hell were they thinking? Like, this is not. It's barely a Western.
Yeah.
Even though it wants very hard to be a Western. It's really just the Brat Pack in Western garb. And Emilio Estevez goes over the top in a way that I can't recommend.
He's Billy the Kid. Is this the one, or was it Young Guns 2 that they're out for revenge for the assassination of their mentor?
That's the first one.
That's the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy that hired them and brought them all together is killed, and that's why they band together as Young Guns to go after his killer. The second one's even worse. I remember even less about that. I do remember.
It's got a Boss soundtrack, though, from Bon Jovi.
Yeah, well, again, we're talking about the era this movie was made in. That's part of why it doesn't hold up so well.
Yeah.
Also, Emilio Estevez in old man makeup suggesting Billy the Kid lived is a creepy moment you will never forget.
Yeah.
But nowhere near contention for this discussion, but worthy of mention for its cultural impact.
All right, so Who Framed Roger Rabbit came out in 1988. We recently sinned this movie, and I found it not to be as good as I thought I remember it being.
That's the same for me. I saw it when I was a kid and loved it. Haven't seen it in 20 years. It didn't hold up for me.
And it's not because we're sitting there looking for things wrong. It's just that it just doesn't hold up as much as it used to. I don't know what that is. I don't know what happened. I still consider this like a classic, I guess, but it really does not hold up today.
Well, and it's classic as much for the gimmick as the content.
Yeah, the novelty, right?
Yeah.
And putting cartoon characters, both new ones and ones that we're familiar with from other properties, on the same screen as humans was something I'd never seen before.
Right.
And it almost feels like most of the effort, maybe the money, went to that, as opposed to... Because we did find a lot wrong with the story when we were sitting this movie. There's a lot of problems with it. Of course, it's not made for people who pay attention to story problems. It's made for 6-year-olds.
Right.
But doesn't hold up for me at all either. Another movie that has never held up, but I still love, is Willow.
Okay.
And maybe not a week goes by that I don't say to my wife when she gets home from work, "Welcome home. You deserve medals." And that's probably all we need to say about Willow.
Yeah. Also in 1988, John Carpenter, who we've woven in and out of this series, who continues to make awesome movies. They Live came out in 1988, and it's another fantastic movie. If you're like, look, it's a great B movie. This is what John Carpenter's wheelhouse is. Sci-fi horror. All about like putting on special glasses to see the secret messages that are subliminally going into the humans. Has one of the best fight scenes of all time in it. It's actually just a funny fight scene for how long it takes. Roddy Piper and Keith David are both like fighting for it takes, I think, 15 minutes or something like that.
Does this movie have the quote with the longest reach versus the fewest amount of people who've seen the movie? Because that kick-ass chew bubblegum line, I bet you everybody in America has heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
But almost nobody's seen this movie.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm curious how that one line popped out of that movie and became a cultural thing.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? I know that in Dazed and Confused, they say it later on.
Oh, okay.
Sort of possibly implies that it was a saying before this movie came out. But... even though, Dazed and Confused came out after, but it was
set before
the 70s. Yeah. So maybe it was just the fact that it was Roddy Piper and everything, saying it in the way he says it. You know, it's like, I came here to kick ass, chew bubblegum, and kick ass. It's very wooden and everything, but he's great at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, They Live, another one of those resounding. You got to go see that just because it's a fun B movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. For me is The Last Temptation of Christ came out this year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, I'm 13 when this movie comes out, and I'm a preacher's kid.
Right.
So I'm nowhere near this movie.
You're not the demographic.
In fact, the only knowledge I have of this movie are people at church talking about banning this movie or boycotting this movie because it plays fast and loose with the Jesus story. So later in college, I become a film buff. I'm watching as much as I can. I'm renting as much as I can. I decide I'm going to watch this movie. And this movie should affirm Christianity for those who believe it more than scare them. Because I don't know if you've never seen this movie, but the basic premise is that instead of dying, Jesus comes off the cross and goes on to lead a happy life and marries Mary Magdalene and has kids and yada yada. And that's what scared all the religious people. But at the end of the film, he opens his eyes and he's still on the cross, and he has chosen not to do that. Mm-hmm. And it sort of says, he could have, but didn't, and makes, the choice to die even cooler, I think.
It just goes to show that if you don't adhere to the absolute biblical truth, and which is weird because movies that claim to be that
play fast and loose.
Play fast and loose too. Yeah. But because it's Scorsese and because it's Jesus who's actually in a relationship, heaven forbid that ever happen. It must be horribly blasphemous if that's the case.
Not at all. And that was a hugely controversial movie. It was not just in my little tiny Indiana town. I think all over the country that was a controversial film. Yeah. So it had to be mentioned, I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
So a couple of dramas that I don't know if you guys like, but that were really, really good and kind of impactful on me are The Unbearable Lightness of Being and Dangerous Liaisons.
Okay, I've never seen Unbearable Lightness. I have seen Dangerous Liaisons.
Oh, Unbearable Lightness of Being is terrific, one, for Lena Olin. Mm-hmm. She is one of the most beautiful women I think I've ever seen.
Yep.
Just the atmosphere and the visuals and the mood. You were talking about like Tron Legacy. It's a very different mood, but it's fantastic. And Daniel Day-Lewis is, of course, predictably, even though he's years before his true wheelhouse, like he's just awesome. Mm-hmm. So everybody should definitely check this out. It's Philip Kaufman directed it, and it's pretty slow pace, but it's basically kind of an exposition on relationships and how different forms they can take and that kind of thing. And it's probably the polar opposite content-wise of Dangerous Liaisons, where it's all scheming and manipulation and things like that. This is Unbearable Lightness of Being is a very human type of movie about real relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Dangerous Liaisons is maybe one of the most filmed pieces of literature ever.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's like 3 other movie versions. We got Cruel Intentions. Yeah. Now they're remaking Cruel Intentions.
Right.
And they got Sarah Michelle Gellar back.
Yeah. And Milos Forman made one, I think the following year, just called Valmont.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's been, and I think it's actually probably been done a couple of other times. We just didn't hear about those.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really good. John Malkovich is amazing in Dangerous Liaisons.
Well, Michelle Pfeiffer, Keanu's in that too.
Keanu, right? And Uma. Uma, one of her first roles.
That's right.
That's right. As she's like 18 in that movie.
Yeah, she's really young.
Yeah. Keanu, shows up like towards the end
just to show off his acting chops.
Yeah, because he's the it boy. They have to bring him in. But really good movie. What else, guys? Well, since we're talking about prestige here, we can talk about Rain Man.
Yeah.
Which won Best Picture. Rain Man is really good. I don't think I'm going to give it my vote. It's one of those movies. Dustin Hoffman rightfully gets a lot of credit for that movie, but Tom Cruise, and I think I've heard a few people say this, if it's not for Tom Cruise and his performance and letting Dustin Hoffman do his thing, it's not nearly the movie that it becomes.
I agree completely.
And so Cruise is really good in that. He's in sort of. I don't know if Cruise got nominated for Rain Man. I think he was overlooked in that because he didn't have the showy role. But if you ever want to read something hilarious about Rain Man, actually just about studios in general, there's a book that talks about how John Peters and Peter Guber took over Sony, and they just went in and just blew a whole bunch of money and everything, just threw money at everything. But when Rain Man was being developed by Steven Spielberg and a lot of people in its early genesis or whatever, and Spielberg has a meeting with one of those guys. I think it's Peter Guber. Goes into to the house, and they talk about this script for Rain Man. Peter Cooper says, we should have Raymond go to a Dodgers game, and then in the 7th inning, the Dodgers get Raymond out of the stands, and he pitches the 8th inning. And
What the fuck? Oh my god!
actually, I think he pitches the 9th inning, and he pitches it, and they win the game. That's what he says. I have to look up this book. I'm gonna have to look up this book, but if you ever want to read something about like crazy ass Hollywood, I think it's called Hit and Run.
Well, I just read the other day that Gene Roddenberry's original draft for Star Trek had Kirk fighting Jesus. And they wouldn't let him make it.
Yeah.
And now I want to see Kirk fighting Jesus. That's all I
Oh
want to
yeah.
see.
Oh yeah.
Now, that would be blasphemous, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the book is called Hit and Run, and it's how John Peters and Peter Guber took Sony for a ride in Hollywood. If you can ever find that book, read it. You won't believe all the stuff. It talks about all the stuff that happens in the early 90s, how Schwarzenegger, Willis, and Stallone were getting outrageous salaries, basically because of Sony, and all the stuff. Just, you won't believe the stuff that, these guys actually ran a studio.
It's crazy. It makes it all the more funny in The Player when they're pitching that shitty ass Bruce Willis movie.
Yeah.
Because you're like, yeah, that pitch could happen.
Yeah. Another one that stands out, another fun one, another good comedy, Midnight Run. Robert De Niro and Charles Grodin. They've made this movie a million times now, where it's a bounty hunter having to go across the country or whatever with their bounty or whatever, and they've made a million of those now. But Midnight Run is the one that you should see. It probably says "fuck" in it about 500 times, something like that. Yeah. Someone counted it. Yeah. I think it's in the trivia somewhere. They say it every other word, but this is De Niro at a different. In a different light. You didn't see De Niro like this, really. I mean, he's still a tough guy and all that, but just a fun movie.
It's interesting to me that this is the year that solidified Tom Hanks as the big comedy star, but he was also in Punchline.
Yeah.
Which, despite being about stand-up comedy, is not a comedy.
Super underrated.
Super underrated.
Oh, yeah.
It's a drama. There's plenty to laugh at because you get to see some comedy performances and whatnot, but it's interesting to me that he was showing the versatility even then in the same year.
Yeah, he and Sally Field gets some great lines.
She does
in that movie, and her routines are really genuinely hilarious too.
Yeah,
it's one of those movies. By the way, they to show you the awful way they treat women in Hollywood. Punchline. Hanks and Sally Field are love interests in this movie, even though they're not really love interests, but I guess they're like romantic leads or whatever. So they're on equal footing or whatever. But 6 years later in Forrest Gump, she's his mom.
Oh yeah, Jesus, that's hilarious.
There's a couple of foreign language films that pop out. I don't know if they actually came out in 1988, but it shows up on the IMDb that way, so we can talk about them. Akira is huge in the way of anime. I mean, that's the Citizen Kane of it, isn't it? I don't think I've seen the movie like 3 times. I still don't think I understand everything that happens in Akira, but it's great though. Yeah. It's one of those. It's just watchable. Great movie. Yeah. Another one, and we talked about this before. It was Cinema Paradiso, which is one that you guys definitely need to watch, especially if you ever worked in projection, 35 millimeter projection. It is the perfect ode to projectionists, basically. But anything else stand out?
And guys? They need odes.
Yes, they do.
Well, I just want to mention Talk Radio. I know it's not considered great. It's one of those movies that I think just time forgot. We discovered it in the video store in college, and I was like, Oliver Stone, I'll watch this because and basically, it's about a shock jock, and the movie takes place over the course of basically one evening during his show. And the reason I like this movie so much is that it builds tension extremely well with the visuals and the soundtrack, not just the music, but the audio. and the way we cut in and out of headphone audio versus what somebody on the radio is hearing or what have you. And by the end of the film, you definitely have a sense of dread. And all the performances are great. So this is not like State and Maine, where I'm guaranteeing everyone's going to love this movie. But if you take the idea of, an early Howard Stern, somebody who's actively mean to their callers for ratings, and maybe a caller gets a little angry about that. Just a really good, solid drama, and holds up really well. And maybe I like it because I did radio for a while. I don't know.
But Oliver Stone is on an amazing role at this point. He's done Platoon, Wall Street, talk radio. They're all good. So he's also one of those directors we like to talk about in this time. Couple of other comedies that stand out. Another one that I've seen probably 32 times, along with Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, is A Fish Called Wanda.
Yeah.
A Fish Called Wanda is like getting to see Monty Python again, but it's in a more straighter comedy this time. But John Cleese is so funny in this movie.
Yeah.
This is. I mean, he should really get nominated for this work that he does in there. And Kevin Kline he won the Oscar for this. But A Fish Called Wanda is just it's a complex like caper film basically where this band of jewel thieves has stolen these jewels, and they've stored them away, and but they have to get one of their guys has gotten caught, so they have to get so Jamie Lee Curtis basically has to seduce John Cleese, who's the barrister and everything, and try to get him to sort of get a more favorable case or whatever. I don't want to talk too much about it because it's one of those movies that's got a lot of surprises in it and stuff. But Michael Palin plays a guy with an awful stutter and everything, which got the movie in trouble with a lot of groups and everything. I don't think it was an offensive take on it, but
of all the offensive things in the 80s, that's probably the least.
I know, no kidding. But another one, I think we were sitting here in 1988 going, I recommend this and I recommend that and I recommend this. There's a lot of those type of movies in here.
Remember a previous podcast, we talked about how many songs the Police put out that were like about creepy sex stuff. And Chris and I were at a wedding recently, and the guy giving the little homily thing was quoting the Police, "Every breath you take, I'll be watching you." But then he made the joke, but then you realize that song's about stalking. And I turned to Chris and I was like, I'm glad he chose that Police song. And not
no kidding.
The 80s were messed up.
Yes. Another one that stands out really just because it was just such a huge hit was Twins. Not a great movie by any means, but Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito are genetically engineered twins. And here's how my mind thought in when I was 11 years old and this movie came out. And there's that scene where Schwarzenegger's talking to DeVito, and he's like, we're twins. And DeVito's like, oh yeah, it's like looking in a mirror. I actually thought that DeVito was playing an actual twin, but that's how they were acting like they were twins. Like even though they didn't visually look the same, and that's where the comedy was coming from. But then, you watch the movie, and when you're stupid like me at 11 and you go, oh yeah, okay. It's just that they're incongruously twins. I see. But yeah, I don't really recommend Twins that much, but it's an artifact from 1988.
Well, another artifact is Beaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to recommend this movie, but there was a time where every woman in America was crying over it.
And The Wind Beneath My Wings.
Yep.
Good God, was that ever present?
Yeah, that's crazy. We were talking about there's a lack of theme pop songs in these movies that we've been talking about, as opposed to like 1987 and before then. But yeah, Beaches, freaking Wind Beneath My Wings,
bitches.
Beaches, bitches.
Yes,
God, I mean that was everywhere. That made it to a Seinfeld episode.
We should probably mention Working Girl.
Yeah. It's a good movie.
I think somebody was nominated from it. At least for a Golden Globe.
Melanie Griffith, I think, was nominated for Working Girl. Might be her only nomination, actually. But it's good. It's got Harrison Ford. It's got I think one of Kevin Spacey's early first roles. Sigourney Weaver is really, I mean, she's awesome.
Yeah, she is.
I love Sigourney.
Oh yeah,
Weaver.
she did that in Gorillas in the Mist.
Yeah. Good 1-2 punch for Sigourney Weaver that year. Yeah, I mean, that's a good movie. In the cover your ass territory, you've got stuff like Child's Play, which is not a good movie, but it was the beginning of a huge franchise. Yeah. So yeah, Child's Play came out in 1988. Bloodsport, which was another one that, like, you were talking about Young Guns and everything. Bloodsport was like, I mean, everybody I knew seemed to know Bloodsport, you know, and I was not old enough to see it. And I'm like, how are you old enough to see it? What else is in here? I don't know if there's much. I mean,
if you want to get real deep, Francis Ford Coppola did Tucker. The Man in His Dream.
Tucker.
And it's him doing his most, rah-rah populist type of thing. And interestingly enough, I went to Coppola's vineyard in Napa Valley forever ago, and he's got a few collectibles in his in his loft, in his central thing there. He's got a little museum, and he's got the desk from The Godfather in there, and he's got a surfboard from Apocalypse Now, and he has the entire Tucker model car in that thing. It's awesome. Yeah.
I would too if I were him.
Yeah.
I'll also mention I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker.
Yes.
Which is Keenan Ivory Wayans coming on the scene. A parody of blaxploitation flicks and everything. That's a fun movie too. This is the year of Van Damme coming into the scene. This was Steven Seagal with Above the Law coming in. And then after that, I think we're going to
Above the Law.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker? Isn't that the famous Chris Rock line of how much for one rib?
I don't remember, man. I'm sorry, I can't.
He goes up and he's like, well, how much for some ribs? And he was like, it'd be like $4. And then he thinks about it. He takes like a dime and he's like, how much for one rib?
I think that is actually, now that you've done that whole thing. Yeah, it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going to vote, the order is Jeremy, Chris, and Barrett.
All right.
I get to set the tone.
Yes.
Well, I'll do a big speech here, but I'm just going to tell you it's Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Die Hard is fantastic in every way, holds up super well, and has been the model of basically every action film for the most part in the last 25 years. And there was even a time there, and it got to the point where it's a cliche now, where there was even a time there where you could tell they were pitching movies as Die Hard on a train, Die Hard on a boat, Die Hard in an airplane. There's a reason they pitched it that way, because Die Hard is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And no matter how much I like any other movie in this year, nothing's going to touch the cultural impact and overall quality in my eyes. So it's Die Hard for me.
Yeah, those movies that you're talking about, like Under Siege was one, and Speed, and they really like to, and I wish they would make more of these nowadays. They got that everyman cop or Navy SEAL or whatever kind of guy into a tight space, and he just wasting bad guys one by one when he can. Not like going out into this huge battle and blowing away 500 people like Rambo in every single scene.
Well, and has any franchise ever lost touch of what it was about faster and worse than Die Hard?
No.
I mean, after Die Hard 2, we'll get to that when we get to 1990, but Die Hard 2 is underrated as an action movie, but it
ain't the same, that's for sure.
And it's still sort of confined to one place.
Yeah.
Then
it's not in Russia.
Die Hard with a Vengeance. yeah, exactly.
New York City.
Die Hard with a Vengeance, it's all of New York City. And then it's like, I like Die Hard with a Vengeance too. But then after that, those two other movies that are just, they're just awful.
I don't even know if Bruce Willis remembers what these movies are about.
Hell no.
At least in Good Day to Die Hard, he was barely trying, man.
Yeah.
He was earning that paycheck.
Yeah, he was. Barrett's vote doesn't matter because I'm gonna vote Die Hard, and I this is the type of thing that I wish more. Like I said, wish more action movies would emulate Die Hard, especially in the fact that there's a scene in Die Hard where they're telling you everything about the action, the place of the action that they're about to where the action's going to take place. When he's running along the one thing and he says, "Oh, okay, there's the naked girls," and then he runs to the next thing. It's telling you and telling him he does actually need to know this information.
Yeah.
Like, where am I in this building?
It's orienting you constantly.
And it orients you subtly.
Uh-huh.
Like, all right, oh, the naked girls. Okay, I know where that is. And then, like, where this action is going to take place. And it's just fantastic. Got just a lot of quotable lines in it. And I could watch Die Hard anytime.
Yeah.
Die Hard is so good.
Yeah.
Well, a small part of what made it good, two things. First of all, it was rated R, and it wasn't, super hard R, but there was, reasonable violence and there was reasonable like language and things like that, which I think studios are kind of going back to now, but they really got away from it. Die Hard itself got away from it. It was all, PG-13 for the last couple of times. But my vote is also Die Hard, and it's easy to forget that back in those days, because it was so over the top with Schwarzenegger and Stallone and all these guys, the erstwhile Expendables, where he's a vulnerable action hero.
Yeah.
Where they have the scene where he steps on the broken glass and he starts bleeding profusely, and you can see the pain in his face when he's going through. And you hadn't seen that at that point. And I think we've kind of gotten away from that now too.
Well, we've gotten into back to an age of Superman heroes, and no one is a bigger apologist for the Bourne series than I am. But the Bourne movies, even Mission Impossible, the last two movies, which I'd say those and Bourne are among the best modern action films made.
Definitely.
But those people are all Superman.
Yeah,
those people are untouchable, right? And when you give me Ethan Hunt, like, maybe gonna die, I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
The reason those movies are awesome is that I know Tom Cruise might have died because he actually does have an action.
Yeah.
But I'm never worried the character's going to die.
There's so many stunts that happen in Die Hard that they are over the top, but they make sense. Like the fire hose scene. He has no other choice. The roof's going to blow. He's like, this is a bad idea. He doesn't think it's going to work, but he makes it work. And everything that happens to him getting safe by the end of that is something that's like not only exciting and thrilling, but it kind of makes sense for his character to do. And I think in movies nowadays, it's like, they're just running around and somebody's like, "Oh, hose." And then they just, and they just do it without even thinking.
Well, and Die Hard also does something I don't see enough of anymore. And that's that it gives little personality moments to all of the henchmen, not just, but like the guy downstairs with the boppy jokes who's getting into the safe. And then the guy at the front desk who's kills anybody that comes in, I guess, has a very unique personality. We got the brother who's pissed off about his brother dying. We've got that no more table guy.
Right.
They all have some little element of uniqueness.
Yeah. And I mean, we've already talked about Alan Rickman before on a couple of other podcasts, but his Hans Gruber is still the model for which villains should be patterned on.
Even great actors like Jeremy Irons have fallen flat on their face trying to do what he did in that movie.
Yeah. So if you haven't guessed already, Die Hard is the movie that
unanimous pick, baby.
A unanimous pick, and deservedly so.
Yay!
All right, so today we're going to be talking about sports movies.
Son of a bitch, Paul, why didn't you just go home?
Just a bit outside. He tried the corner and missed. You're excited. Feel these nipples.
Yeah.
Sports. We like sports.
Yes. I brought the sports movies up because sports movies are weird to me in a lot of ways. Sports are inherently team oriented in general in real life. But I feel like, especially in baseball movies, it's all they need is one guy to make their team great.
Yeah.
And this happens in The Natural. This happens in Bad News Bears.
Yeah.
It happens in a lot of
Hoosiers.
Hoosiers. Yeah. Hoosiers is the biggest one that does this, but like, you look at the teams that are around these guys, and you're like, there's no way they're good just because they put this guy on. And I guess the whole point is that, well, this guy is so good, he makes other people better. But like, I've never gotten that.
Even Remember the Titans does this with Kip whatever.
Yeah, Kip Purdue.
Yeah. Almost every sports movie does that. You're right. And it's frustrating. And it ties into one of the ones I had on my list of weird things sports movies do, which is where a shit team gets really good in like a week.
Yeah.
Like,
because they're training.
The most recent one that I've seen is The Rookie with Dennis Quaid, which is a movie I enjoy, based on a real story. And this high school baseball coach of a shit team basically wants them to win. And they say, okay, well, if we win X number of games, will you try out for baseball? Because they know he's got a killer arm, throws like 99 or whatever. And he finally reluctantly agrees. And it does show them practicing in a fucking gravel like quarry because they don't have a field. And then they rattle off 16 wins or something. And I don't care what you believe about the power of motivation. Those kids were shitty baseball players, and they do not get good even in the course of one season.
They got fixed.
In the case of The Natural, like I feel like Roy Hobbs shows up to this team. They're already horrible, and they've probably played a quarter of the season already. And then they sit Roy Hobbs forever, and he's not playing. They're still losing, and all this other type of stuff. Finally, Bump Bailey runs through the fence and dies, and then gives Roy Hobbs his chance, and they're winning. And apparently, they're winning every game that Roy Hobbs is good in, or whatever. But at this point, they're going to have to win at least 60 in a row, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so bad, they've already dug a hole for themselves. Then, not only is Roy Hobbs helping them win all these games in a row, he has a slump that lasts months, maybe.
Yeah.
Like there's I'm going out with Memo Parrish, he's bad luck, and it's going on forever. And then finally he sees Glenn Close stand up in the stands at Wrigley, and he's like, all right, I'm good now. And so they play all the way to the point where I know that baseball seasons are long, but they're not that long.
Well, that's stupid, because baseball is the least applicable sport for having one person to change.
Yeah.
I know there's like wins above replacement and stuff like that,
Right.
but like Bryce Harper doesn't give the Nationals like 20 more wins.
Yeah.
Chris Bryant on the Cubs it takes like these machinations, because the Cubs had Anthony Rizzo for all those years, and he didn't make them fucking good until they got all these other kids coming up.
You have to have pieces, and you can't tell me that the New York Knights and the Natural were just a one player away type team.
Yeah. In basketball, you can make the argument that Teen Wolf, having Teen Wolf on your team can turn your shit around.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because one player can dominate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like in Kicking and Screaming, the Will Ferrell version, they got those Italian kids and everything. In kids soccer, maybe you're one or two, kids away from doing it, but not fucking baseball. That doesn't make any
I
sense.
beg to differ. I saw this movie called Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
Where the little kid with a surgical repaired arm,
Yes.
he turned that season around.
Yes.
So there's evidence.
Every fifth start.
Absolutely. Yeah. As long as you get a pitcher who pitches every fifth day, you can make the Cubs good.
You get Joseph Gordon-Levitt to stand up and wave his arms like he's flying.
Mm-hmm.
Angels in the outfield.
Dude,
Sorry.
you're about to get into another section of before we get into that section, I do want to talk about, just back in this same topic, I think in Major League there's nobody good on that team.
No.
There's
Euchre's drinking whiskey in the middle of the game.
Yeah, there's
bad.
nobody good on that team, and like they make it like Wild Thing, Charlie Sheen, a relief pitcher, makes them great, and like there's nobody on that team, like not even like who's the guy who's Joe Boo and all that? He plays Pedro Serrano.
Yeah.
He's their slugger, but he's not good either. He's like an all or nothing Dave Kingman type.
He swings the shit out of the ball.
Yeah, and he sucks. He's not good.
Yeah.
He occasionally hits a home run.
Yeah.
Tom Berenger's an old catcher.
Yeah.
And Wesley Snipes, he's fast, but like who's driving him in?
Corbin
Burnson, who doesn't give a shit.
He doesn't give a shit anymore. Yeah, until he gets physically threatened.
Yeah, exactly. It really takes the threat of the team moving before all of them become
that. Yeah, that is the whole power of belief. Now that we and they got an old crusty manager that also doesn't look like he gives a shit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's they do this in sports movies because you hear this in real sports life, like. We went into halftime and we looked in our coach's eyes and he was like, he ran it down for us. He gave us the speech of a lifetime, all this other stuff. I wonder how many times that happens and they still lose the game.
Yeah.
We don't hear about those.
Nobody's going to bring that up.
Yeah. But in movies, man, they are magic. Like,
a player at the end of a Super Bowl. Coach really had me convinced at halftime.
Yeah, no, it's like it's even worse now that we've lost. But you were about to get into Angels in the Outfield, and I put this in a movie with Angels in the Outfield, The Sixth Man, Flubber, all these movies where there's sports being played and like the weirdest shit is happening and everybody's watching it like, well, that's totally normal.
Yeah. Like, Rookie of the Year is in that group.
Yeah.
Teen Wolf is in that group.
Yeah.
Like all of society
Airbud.
Just accepts a goddamn wolf playing basketball.
Yeah.
Wolf.
I applaud you not being speciesist, but Jesus. Give me one guy going, should this be happening?
He could eat my face off, but he's a hell of a basketball
player.
player.
Has he had his rabies shot? Like, I mean...
They do that so many times. The ball will be going in a certain trajectory, and it will completely change its trajectory in midair. And somebody's like, "Well, that guy's good."
Yeah, Yeah. Well, Angels in the Outfield and Sixth Man are like the worst offenders of that, right?
Yeah.
Because there's literal, like, invisible things impacting the trajectory of the sports ball.
And people are just sitting there watching it, going, "Man, that guy's awesome."
Yeah.
Look at what he did with that ball there. How did he do that?
Oh man, well,
so baseball is probably is easily my favorite sport, and the movies that it's produced are obviously hit and miss.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest miss of all time is Trouble with the Curve.
Oh boy, boy.
Trouble with the Curve is the anti-Moneyball. And to me, it's the anti-intellectualism, basically. First off, the claims of Moneyball are not the claims that the people who hate Moneyball think that Moneyball is making the claims for. Moneyball has its own problems. We'll get to that in a minute. But Trouble with the Curve, I hate that movie so much because, and if I guess I'll spoil Trouble with the Curve. I mean, we spoil this shit all the time.
Yeah, there you go.
But Clint Eastwood is an aging scout who just can't see well anymore. And there's this one player that the Atlanta Braves are looking at, and he's this great hitter and all this other stuff. And Eastwood is sort of following this guy around because Matthew Lillard, the Moneyball guy of the Atlanta Braves organization, says, "Oh man, this guy's great." And apparently, this Moneyball guy, the sabermetrics guy, only looks at computers. That's all he does. And that's how he figures out people are great, which is not what Moneyball was about. It's part of it, but it's not all of it. So he's following this guy, and Eastwood is like, here's his swing, and he's like, he's got trouble with the curve. That swing, he can't hit the curve because I can hear it.
Yeah.
And that's how good he is and everything. Meanwhile, like, there's this peanut vendor guy that Amy Adams, who's the daughter of Clint Eastwood, runs into, and like the guy that they're scouting is like a total asshole to this peanut vendor guy for whatever reason. But there's a point where they finally draft this guy, and it's towards the end where he's getting his like little tryout in front of everybody in Atlanta and everything. And the guy's like hitting home runs left and right and all this other stuff. And everybody's like, yeah, we made the right pick. And then Amy Adams, surprise, surprise, peanut vendor guy. She found out that he's got an arm that's amazing. He can throw like 98 miles an hour and this awesome curve, all this other stuff. She puts him on the mound against this dude, and he strikes him out in 3 pitches, and they fire Matthew Lillard because of that. One fucking at bat. It's talking about small sample size, guys. Like, nobody in the world has ever struck out in 3 pitches. Not one star player has ever been like it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And plus, we don't even know the pitcher's good based on that.
Yeah.
If that guy sucks, then anybody should be able to strike him out.
Eastwood is playing basically a blind man at this point.
Yes.
So all of his scouting is basically the only reason Amy Adams is going with him on the scouting trip is to be his eyes.
Right.
He hears this guy can't hit the curve on a pitch when the guy hits the curve over the fence.
Yes.
It's a home run.
Right.
On a curveball.
Right.
They have to go that far to tell you how good this guy's ear is.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. But also, can we just agree that Amy Adams and Justin Timberlake wanted to work with Clint Eastwood before he died? Because there couldn't have been anything in this script. Their romance is literally paint by numbers movie romance. It's terrible. They're walking down the street and spontaneously they start dancing. I'm like, I guess they're in love now. I fucking hate this movie.
Yeah. It's one of the worst sports movies ever. And I know there's an anti-intellectualism type of thing going on in this country and everything, and people hate it when people are coming up with stats and figures and things that try to give us a better understanding of what we're watching. I know that for years and years we used the eye test, but man, oh man, they made a whole movie about like how that those statistics, you can throw them out the window because if you can hear somebody swing on a curveball, if he was really that good, the Braves should have had every great player ever made, ever created. They should have had them because that's how ridiculous that is.
Yeah, no, and it's funny to me how much you hate this movie considering the Braves are involved, and I know you love the Braves.
Yeah.
There's not even any part of you that's like, well, the Braves are in it. So.
No, hell no. Although there's any baseball movie featuring the Braves is awful. There's another one called The Slugger's Wife that came out a long time ago.
Remind me to skip that.
Yeah, it's not good either.
Something I see a lot in sports movies that bothers me or seems like cliche-ish, and I'm going to talk about it in the context of golf movies, but it's the team we're following always has to win at the end.
Yeah.
And, I love golf. There aren't a lot of golf movies, but all of them except one have the main character winning in the end, whether we're talking about Legend of Bagger Vance or Greatest Game Ever Played or freaking Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore, yeah.
And we've talked about Tin Cup before, but it illustrates something that I think more movies should do, because there are movies where the good team, the good guys don't win. Like in Any Given Sunday, they don't win that last playoff game. They lose it. But whenever that's employed, it feels like the movie just wants to show us reality.
Yeah.
They don't always win. Tin Cup has him not win at the end, but the end is still thrilling as fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And you're excited as if he had won. And I've almost never seen another movie do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tin Cup has one of my favorite endings of all time in it. Because that is his character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To a
He's consistent.
T.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And he's playing, I think it's the U.S. Open or something like that. He's playing the U.S. Open, and for the 3 days, he's tried to get this ball on the green on one shot. And every time he's had to take a lie afterwards because it goes into the water.
Yeah.
And like, so then he finally gets to that final day, and you're like, okay, he's going to do the smart thing because that's what heroes in movies do.
Yeah.
They finally learn from their mistakes. And this guy hits the ball and it goes right back in the water, and he's like, damn it, I can get this. And it's not about winning the tournament. It's about getting that shot.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so fun to watch that whole and watching the announcers too.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody tackle it.
Well, that's a great thing. Like, he turns the audience that's watching it. He turns the audience, the characters in the movie where they're around there just rooting for him to at this point to hit the green. Everybody's basically like, all right, man, keep going until you get it. I mean, it's like 9 balls or something like that. And it's his last ball, and it's just it's absolutely thrilling. And it's got to be for, like, Joe Sixpack that, has to play by the rules and that kind of thing. It's a very unsatisfying ending maybe, but like to anybody else, it's terrific because he does whatever, again, it's consistent with the character.
The other repeat offender is boxing movies.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe $1 Million Baby aside, it's one of the reasons I don't really care about boxing movies. Like I just watched Southpaw on HBO or Showtime.
Still
or
haven't
something.
seen that.
Well, Jake Gyllenhaal's great in it, but I was completely underwhelmed. I knew every beat of that story before I saw it. One of the reasons I was so surprised Creed got so much love. I haven't seen that yet, even though I'm not convinced it's good because everybody says it is. But all the Rocky movies, Cinderella Man, the guy always wins that last fight.
That's what I think. That's what made Rocky, the original Rocky, so good. Now he didn't win. It was, of course, a contested decision and everything like that. But he didn't win that first fight.
Well, he wins every fight after that,
except for the one with Mason the Lion Dixon and Rocky Balboa, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just kind of like shows up and does well.
That's that same callback like the first one. Like, it's just good that he stayed around.
Exactly. So I mean, but the point I'm trying to illustrate is that like it's kind of, why don't they do that anymore?
Yeah.
It certainly worked for Rocky in the first place. I
Right.
mean, you don't have to win if you're showing up and you're really like, causing hearts and minds to shift from, Apollo Creed as being this god to at least, hey, you gave it a shot. They should do that more.
Well,
I
and,
think so.
and Creed does do that, by the way. Creed does. He doesn't win. And
Oh, yeah,
that's right.
They follow that exact pattern.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anything that you want to say about Creed that is bad, is that it's so much the first Rocky.
It is so much the first Rocky that he does not know how to box. That's what drives me fucking crazy about these boxing movies is how many punches to the face they openly take. Their hands are down by like their belly and they just lead with their face. And apparently that's how Sly trained Michael B. Jordan because he just gets in there and lets his face get in the way of the punches.
Right. Well, and that was the whole reason why Rocky was good was because he could take the punches, which is of course ludicrous. But
put his hands up a little bit.
But to find a protege that's just like that, hey,
go ahead. You put your face in. And you get hit a bunch, and every once in a while you go swing back, and you'll be okay. All right, it's good.
It's like, and then if you want to get into, I mean, Cinderella Man is more biopic and everything. Raging Bull is also kind of that way, even though it's weird. That movie's not really. It is a boxing movie.
Yeah, but it's more of like. Yeah.
And it's got some of the most visceral boxing that you'll ever see in it. Those movies are obviously got some of their own dark moments, or they've got, it's not all like winning and everything is not the most important thing and everything. But yeah, I know what you mean. Like most boxing movies that you're going to watch, if it's just any random boxing movie, it's going to be this guy lost his first one. And then he's got to train throughout the rest of the movie. And then it's like to that big moment at the end. And then, he's going to win.
And I think what we're dancing around is how generic sports movies can feel when they all sort of take some kind of underdog and have them beat some kind of unbeatable team, right? Mm-hmm. And the only movie I forgive that for out and out is Miracle because that actually happened.
Yeah.
And that is a sports movie that does a lot of other things great. Like he brings in the hotshot player to piss his players off, not to make his team better, and they send that guy back away. He's a crusty old coach. Like that's a cliche in sports movies, but he's the best crusty old coach ever. I love that movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, the pattern is very simple. Imagine if the Mighty Ducks didn't win at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Would Disney ever make those movies?
Probably not.
No, but that's not, again, not every movie has to be reality. What the point I'm trying to make is that there is more entertainment value to be wrung out of sports than just the underdog wins.
You bring up a good point because of that Miracle movie. Now, Miracle was one of the few. Everybody knows the Miracle on Ice story, even if like you're younger than we are. The 1980 Olympic team upset the Russians or the Soviets in the Olympics in hockey. Now that wasn't the gold medal match. That was the quarterfinals or semifinals or something like that. But it was a huge thing. It was a huge nationalist thing. It was a great sports moment and everything, and everybody remembers it. So there's really not a need to put that in film. But because it's so cinematic and it's got that iconic line of "Do you believe in miracles?" and everything, I think they did a good job with it. But I don't know. When I posed a question last night to say like, what would be a new sports moment or a sports moment that hasn't been put to film yet that would still be good? And all the ones that I thought about, like Jordan coming back and winning, the 3 titles and everything after losing in 95.
Yeah.
Or like, Tiger coming back after, or winning on one leg, the U.S. Open, that kind of thing. Because we've seen it, and because, especially in the most recent one, it's been done to death, it's been documented, you've seen it in so many different thought pieces and everything like that. I don't know if there's anything recent that I would want to see put to film.
Well, this is going to veer off wildly into a tangent for a second. Do you need to see a movie about the Red Sox winning the World Series?
No.
Wouldn't documentary footage be more thrilling because it's
Absolutely.
real?
Absolutely.
And so this is where we get into Man on Wire and The Walk.
Yeah.
Yeah. A movie that didn't need to be made because there is a more visceral experience to be had in the documentary. Did we already do this on a podcast?
We maybe, but I will interject here as far as Boston Red Sox winning a World Series or whatever, some of these things. Sure, we can go to documentary footage and see the actual footage of them winning the game and all that, but the stories behind all of those things is what I would be interested in. What they were thinking, who they were talking to, what was the idea. There's all these great stories, especially when you hear about how Greg Maddux went out. When he'd go to pitch, sometimes he knew he didn't have it, and he'd tell outfielders where to be because he knew that the ball was going to go deeper than usual and all that stuff. I would love to see a whole movie of Greg Maddux being a magician as far as where the ball's going to go and all this other type of stuff when he pitches it and everything. Just make a story out of his life would be amazing to me. But
that's interesting.
But he used to do all these things to cheat too. Like if they were playing in a wet field and somebody hit an infield single, he'd tell the infielders to bring the ball in and just not make a big deal of it. Just put it back in his glove, and he'd have a wet, scratched up ball to pitch with on the next pitch, and so stuff like that. I would like to see some backstory of those big comebacks, like the Red Sox in 2004 against the Yankees and all this
what we're talking about is basically what Moneyball gave us, right? Where we got a little bit of baseball stuff, and there's a great story behind the sports on the field of that team, but we saw behind the scenes, and this is really the model of, I think, what you're pitching, is that we get to see good actors in the roles of these managers and players and GMs, and in that context, I want to see a Kirk Gibson home run.
Yeah, which is by the way, I actually don't want to spoil this future movie, but if you ever want to listen to an amazing story, is Kirk Gibson, how he ended up getting that at bat in that World Series.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he had to really fight for it, right?
He really had to fight for it, and I guess. There were some people in the dugout who heard him in the dugout hitting balls off tees and stuff like that, and just you just hear this thwack, thwack, and he really had to fight to get into that, and the A's didn't think there was any way he would be in the game. The fact that he looks horrible on every pitch before the home run it's a miracle that thing went out.
Yeah.
Moneyball's another good one to talk about, because the source material on that is talking about a way that the A's were able to compete in a world where the Yankees and the Red Sox and all these people can pay their guys hundreds of millions of dollars. And one of the sort of the mistakes of the source material is that they don't pay any attention to the pitchers that are on the A's team. Tim Hudson, Mark Mulder, and Barry Zito were top of the line in their prime pitchers at the time. And the movie, I actually had read the book before watching the movie, and I had forgotten about that. So when I was watching the movie, I was like, where's Tim Hudson? Where's Mark Mulder and all these guys? They helped, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the big failings of Moneyball, is that they don't go over the pitchers and everything, and the hitting was, I don't know, I think I read somebody say that their hitting wasn't any was one of the worst in the league or whatever that year, but we see all those great hits and everything, but that wasn't the point of Moneyball. Right. Really. The point of Moneyball was just to try to find anomalies in the system and try to compete. a system by which everybody can just be frugal and hope to win games and stuff like that. But that was the thing about Moneyball that always bothered me. They never bothered with the pitchers.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important things in the whole thing. You were talking about golf movies, and Happy Gilmore, which is, of course, is a broad comedy by every.
Oh yeah,
by every
that
sense
movie is absurd.
Yes, it is. So we're not looking for accurate golf in Happy Gilmore by any means, but once it gets to the point, there's a couple of things that bother me, and I think Tin Cup does this too. Although Tin Cup is a little bit more understandable. In Happy Gilmore, the thing about Adam Sandler's character about Happy Gilmore is that he can launch these balls 400 yards when he drives.
Yeah.
He can get close, but he has no putting skills whatsoever. And that's the big problem with Happy Gilmore. But then there's a part in the end where he's like, Happy learned how to putt. And I'm like, if you learned how to putt, then shouldn't you be racing away with this tournament at the end? Because you can drive it 400 yards. You're like John Daly back in the day. And now you know how to putt. You should be hitting stuff in two every single time, pretty much. Meanwhile, Christopher McDonald's character is just like playing his normal. He's exactly like the Don Johnson character in Tin Cup. Yeah. Is playing his conservative, whatever, and he's somehow staying with this guy. And it's the same thing with Kevin Costner in Tin Cup. He sort of learns how to control his emotions. He can drive better than anybody in that movie, but he's still somehow Don Johnson's keeping up with him in that whole way. But it's mainly it's the biggest thing in Happy Gilmore to me, because they make a huge deal about it. Happy learned how to putt, and like
that whole final round is full of some crazy ass shit.
Well, and there's a part where that tower falls down.
Yes,
and and Christopher McDonald is like, I had to hit it off Frankenstein's foot, so he's gonna have to hit it with the tower in front of him. And the guy's like, I'm afraid he's right.
That's the rules.
And I'm like, bullshit. That's the rules. There is that. When he hits the ball on basically Jaws, Richard, what's his name from James Bond, when he hits it on his foot, that's his fault. The tower is not Happy Gilmore's fault. Of course he does.
Plus, he's been run over by a fucking Volkswagen that's been driving down the fairway.
Yeah.
I don't think any of this is above the board.
No security at this big, huge tournament. And but then, of course, because he's played mini golf before, he finds a way to hit the ball.
I've seen this.
He hits the ball through the tower, and it's like, boom, and goes right in the hole.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. Well, in real golf, I can tell you, you get to drop off cart paths and water spigots, and if you're too close to the grandstands, you get to drop away. There's a lot they would give you leniency for, and they would certainly not make you putt through a tower.
Or hit a ball off of a shoe.
Yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, those are some of those weird things about sports movies to me, and I'm glad we talked about this today.
I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned it prior, but I think Kevin Costner has one of the best track records with sports movies.
Yeah.
For the love of the game, the Sam Raimi masterpiece.
How in the world that guy made?
It's maybe the only exception, but from Bull Durham to Field of Dreams to Tin Cup, even fucking McFarlane USA, where he's a running coach in Texas, is a good movie. And I don't think he gets enough credit for his commitment. Now, he's an athlete. He loves sports, so that's probably part of it. But I don't know that there's anybody that's been in more sports movies that were good than him.
Yeah. If there's anything you should take out of the SinCast today, is that Kevin Costner is underrated.
That's about
We're going to get ripped for that, probably.
Yeah, probably so. Did you see Draft Day? That was terrible.
I thought that was one I forgot to mention. I thought Draft Day was good.
Draft Day was compelling.
Oh my God. I cannot agree with you on this.
Really?
Holy shit. Draft Day is infuriating.
Well, yeah, no, it's certainly not the most logically sound.
Oh my God. That's the reason why it sucks so bad, though.
Because of the way the picks work out?
Dude, look, I could not get on board in Draft Day with the whole, he trades the picks, and then, he guilt trips those guys into giving him the picks back.
Yeah.
Because there's not one GM who really cares about what the fans say about their move at all, ever. And like in this movie, the whole thing relies on like, and then he gets that one guy, I can't remember he gets that one guy to just give him the pick.
Jacksonville.
Yeah.
It's the brand new GM. And he's
the brand new guy.
Every year someone comes out looking like a donkey. Don't let it be you.
Yeah.
He guilt trips him into... none of those trades would have happened in the real world. Not even the initial one that starts the whole movie.
Now, I guess if you can look past all of that, it's a good movie. Oh my God, that
There's some leaps
infuriated me so much.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But anyway.
For those of you out there that think we agree with each other too much, there's that.
I've got a couple of questions.
We got
if you want to
questions,
do
okay?
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I am listening.
Okay. So our first question is, less movie question, more YouTube. Is there anything you guys enjoy watching on YouTube, it being your primary platform and all? And the reason I found this compelling is that being kind of like the music guy and music video guy is I listen to almost all of my music on YouTube these days.
Yeah.
And it's such an easy and convenient. When we were building the studio here, Chris basically had YouTube on the whole time playing, let's play a Killers track list, or let's play like a Diddy playlist or something like that. Generally, the music was better than that. But yeah, I mean, it's basically my primary, if I want to look up something, I want to look up the Shake Your Tail Feather video from Bad Boys 2, then I'm going to YouTube. And that's basically what I do with YouTube mostly.
Well, I definitely do that. I haven't bought a CD in 10 years. I don't have iTunes. I don't have MP3s that I've downloaded or bought. If I want to hear a song, I go to YouTube. But no, I use it as a jukebox for sure. I think the intent of the question is more of content that we watch for personal enjoyment.
Yeah.
This is going to be a disappointing answer. A, I'm too busy to watch a lot of it. B, a lot of the content that I would watch, I now intentionally don't watch, and that's stuff like How It Should Have Ended or Honest Trailers, people that play in the same field we do, movie-related humor, because I don't ever want to unconsciously steal a joke or make a similar observation, and so I don't watch those guys' videos until well after we've touched that movie, and I always talk about that A14 studio or whatever it is that does these, just go to YouTube and search for Matrix in 60 seconds. They do these little hand-drawn black and white.
Great.
And they do little Sims non-voices vocalizations. We're like, and they're really funny. They're Russian guys. So I always try to promote that channel because it doesn't have anywhere near the subscribers it deserves. But even that guy's stuff, I haven't been able to watch recently. I'm just too busy. If I have time to watch videos for fun, I should be writing sins.
I'm the exact same way. I don't watch as much as I used to. We both used to watch a lot with Real SEO and all that. I used to watch. Now, if you want to frame it this way, what I used to watch a lot was like Vsauce and Minute Physics and CGP Grey and just all those like little sciencey, facty, type of YouTube things. I used to, when we were doing Real SEO stuff, I used to just sit there for like an hour and watch Vsauce and Minute Physics and CGP Grey because they were just endlessly entertaining and educational and all that. And so that's what I used to watch most of, but yeah. And besides that, yeah, music videos and stuff like that are where I get a lot, but yeah, I'm the same way. I don't watch as much as I used to.
I used to watch a lot of Freddie Wong or Corridor Digital, like special effects shorts people. I don't have a lot of time, but I did see a Corridor Digital one a month or so ago where they'd used a drone somehow to film their own TIE fighter battle. It was pretty amazing,
That's awesome.
Actually, because they mounted this thing on the front of the drone that looked like an X-wing cockpit.
Oh, nice!
So you're looking through like you're the pilot, and anyway, they're really good at what they do. I met them once in Florida at a Playlist Live event, but. Anyway, yeah, the short answer is we don't have as much time as we used to.
We'll close it out with this one. In your opinion, who is the best rapper turned actor? And the example that they use is, of course, you can think of Will Smith by default, but you look into Common, he's great. I have an easy answer for this one. And most people maybe listening to this forget that he was a rapper, but it's Mark Wahlberg. And he is... It's weird with Mark Wahlberg, and we could go on forever about this. He seems to have like an acting switch, and he'll turn it on, and he'll be terrific in something, and then he'll turn it off and he'll just coast through something else. But when he's on, he's terrific. I mean, you look at Boogie Nights, you look at Fear from the 90s. Like he's a really, really good actor, and he was a not really, really good rapper back when he was Marky Mark.
Feel it.
Yes, he was feeling the vibrations, and I had that whole album actually, and I listened to the crap out of it.
Well, his brother was one of the New Kids, right?
Yeah, Donnie.
Yeah.
He did a rap of, I think it was a hit actually, of a cover of Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side.
Oh.
And that was his second follow-up hit for Good Vibrations.
Interesting.
And but anyway, yeah, so he turned out to be a very good actor.
For me, it's Mos Def.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good
call.
one.
Yeah, there was a time where Mos Def had it was the mid 2000s, this last decade, where he was in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's gotten disenfranchised with the whole acting thing. He's still in things, but it's not like as much as he used to be. But I thought he was great in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, even though I don't really like that movie. But he's also in that Kevin Bacon very tough movie called The Woodsman, where Kevin Bacon gets out of jail for being a child molester. But he's good in that too. And I loved him on all the little things they put him in on Chappelle's show too. Because he would be, not only he would play like just regular, like some random character here and there, but he would also do performances and stuff at the end of the shows and everything.
He was in The Hater's Ball, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he was. And he was in that racial draft one. But he's really good, and like, I don't know, I feel like he must have just gotten, because he hasn't, I'm looking at his IMDb now.
He was in that Be Kind Rewind.
Be Kind Rewind. He was really good in that too.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
But I feel like that's a guy, when I was watching him back then, I was like, this guy's on the trajectory to possibly get an Oscar down the road. Because that's how, I think, like, if you put him in the right thing, he could have gotten one. But either he doesn't like acting as much as he used to, or they're not casting him in anything, but I thought he's terrific.
Yeah, I agree.
What's interesting is that you guys have both named people from The Italian Job.
Yeah.
And so I want to answer like Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, he's a badass rapper.
Yeah,
sure
totally.
he's ever rapped.
Totally.
Yeah.
If there's anybody else in that movie who ever rapped, that's my answer. Also,
Charlize Theron.
Doesn't Donald Glover rap?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
He would be
Childish Gambino.
He would be my Rookie of the Year answer to this question, because he hasn't done tons of acting yet, but he's great on Community. He was great in The Martian. I think he's really funny. He's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie as some kind of character. And of course, I just watched 8 Mile yesterday, and that's the only Eminem acting performance I think that counts. Sure is great at playing himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Assuming that's how it all really went down. I don't really know how to answer this question. Because I'm going to go with, God, people who know I hate Fast and Furious are going to hate me, but Ludacris.
Yeah.
Because Ludacris
is great.
Yeah.
I love Ludacris.
Well,
and when he comes on screen in anything, it makes me smile.
He's got that voice,
He
man.
does.
It just sounds so great.
He's in Crash, and
He
he's
is.
good in Crash.
He is.
So yeah, I wouldn't hold that against you. I would also probably honorable mention say P. Diddy, because we talked about him before. And Get Him to the Greek.
Yeah.
And
Made, he's actually very good
Made,
too.
he's good. He doesn't act a lot, but when he has acted, it's been fun.
He may be the best part of that Get Him to the Greek.
Oh yeah,
he's definitely the funniest part. Yeah. I'm a man. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I would say my honorable mention would be Ice Cube.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
He has destroyed any role he's been in since Friday. Really, I mean, Friday was less of a reach for him, but like he's really gone at it.
Probably should deserve more than honorable mention, really, to be honest. Has the longest career of any of the people we've talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, Wahlberg,
he's got franchises. I mean, he's got the Barbershop, he's got the 21 Jump Street.
Yeah.
He's just he's
now,
awesome.
are we there yet? Certainly knocks him down a peg. But
yes, that knocks everybody down.
Anybody who even knows about that
but
movie.
even when he was doing press for that, like he was basically like, he wasn't apologizing for it, but he was just like, man, go see it, I guess.
That movie made money. They made a sequel. We're joking about it not being good, but that movie made money.
I think it became a series, too, on TV.
Yeah, I think they did.
Because they made it. Are we there yet? And Are We Done Yet?
Yeah.
Came out after that, and yeah, it did make money and all that. But just because something that makes money doesn't mean it's not immoral to make it. But
Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. But Ice Cube, Boys in the Hood's great.
Yeah.
By the way, if you really want to, if we're talking a lot of B movies and stuff and all that, I would also go see the movie Trespass if you can find it. Really fun movie. With him in it.
I don't remember Trespass.
You don't remember it? Well, I would recommend seeing it because I remember when it came out, I was like, I don't know, that looks stupid or whatever. And I saw it recently, and it's really good.
Just as a quick update to the audience, we get a lot of feedback of saying like, oh, you recommended this movie and I watched it and it was awesome. And we really appreciate that and keep it coming. But we're actually doing that ourselves. So when we recorded that podcast of selling each other movies, Jeremy sold Locke so hard that Chris and I literally watched it that night. And I think Jeremy did too.
I did.
And we all absolutely loved it. And then Chris sold that movie Sorcerer, which I watched last night, and it's genius. It's absolutely fantastic. So we're playing along with you. So I'm going to watch Trespass.
I've got Fear of a Black Hat sitting on the top of my stack of DVDs on my desk, so it's coming soon.
Nice.
Yep, and I saw Nymphomaniac Volume 1.
Yeah, what'd you think?
Yeah, I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
Good
More than you expected.
Yeah, more than I expected. Yeah, sure. All right, well, that's going to be the SinCast for this week. Continue going to SoundCloud and giving us your opinions, comments, questions, and all that, and whatever, and telling us how much we suck or are great. We can take both of them. Anyway, that'll be there you go. That'll be the SinCast for this week. Finally in a studio. So signing off. This is Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Scher. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.